Hello, everyone. My name is Chad Kaufman. I'm the RFSI Grant Specialist here at the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. And today we are going to go over the travel reimbursement for mileage reimbursement. So, this is a pretty brief breakdown. You can find this sheet on our RFSI webpage here at DATCAP. Um, the RFSI travel reimbursement sheet is designed for entities to input data about their travel mileage and provide um, a supplementary a sheet that could be used as supplementary material for when your entity submits for your reimbursement. And this would provide enough information for us to feel um, comfortable and confident that the data is there, it's strong, and that we would be able to provide you that reimbursement for your project activities. So just going to start from the top to bottom here. It's been filled out already. So this cell you could fill out, and what you would put in that cell here is the employee or traveler underneath your project that performed that travel. So say, for example, you had two individuals tied to your project, then you would have to fill out a second one of these there, as that would be another individual's travel. For division slash project, you would just write down your contract number. So we'll say that I have an RFSI contract, I'm underneath it, and I'm performing the scope of work for my project there through this travel. Like we'll say that this travel is necessary for me to perform site visits and attend certain meetings. So you'll see that in the description there that the work that I did for that travel relates to what I was doing. And I would just put down my project or what this mileage is under. So your contract number is what you would provide. And we'll say that my contract number is RFSI Wisconsin 100. So the top right corner of your fully executed contract. Now, following that is here's the most important part of this Excel sheet here, which are these five columns that you'll actually be filling out the data for your travel. So we'll start off here from left to right here in the date column. The date column, you would just list the actual date in which you perform this travel, and that's how we are going to break apart these different travel expenditures. So, for example, here, this was a 1 day trip, so it's only one line, and the miles per trip, I wrote 150.2 because I went from my location here in Madison all the way to Milwaukee. So it would be about 75.1 miles to this address that I just wrote. So it was a round trip. So it's a 75.1 times 2, so 150.2. Along with that, moving over to the right here is the mileage rate. All RFSI contracts are at the state rate at 51% or 51 cents per mile. And then total trip cost calculator. So what that does is multiplies the miles underneath your trip by your mileage rate. So 150.2 miles times the 51 cents per mile rate is $76.60. And then here is probably the column that you want to provide the most detail on is the description column. So for a good description column, you would want to put basically what your entity was doing and where your entity went. So this is a great amount of detail here. So we'll say that my trip from Madison to Milwaukee and back to Madison again was for the Midwest RFSI multi-state meeting. I had to leave from my office here at 2811 Agriculture Drive, Madison, to 123 Songbird Lane in Milwaukee and return. So that's a round trip there. I just wrote, and that would be definitely enough detail as long as the miles equal out. So what we do is verify, is that really 75.1 miles there and back again? And once we can confirm that, then we would approve this expense line. Now, for another example here, we'll say that today I had to go travel to multiple locations under one trip and under one day. So if it's under one day, then it can still be filled out as one line here. So this was all 3 site visits that I went to were under today, the 10th. So we did the math, we did the calculations there. So from my starting point here at 2811 Egg Drive, my location there, I went to Fitchburg, and then from Fitchburg, I went to Janesville, and then from Janesville, I went to that Cottage Grove location, and then from Cottage Grove, I returned back to 2811 Egg Drive. So that was one round trip, and I did the math. It was, say, 100 miles. So 100 miles times the rate is $51 to be reimbursed. And that would be enough information for that reimbursement or that expense. Now, for a multi-day trip, then that's when you would split it apart into different expenditures. So we'll say I had to perform a site visit, but it's all the way up in Hayward, and this was good. I started my drive after my shift was complete, so I didn't get to Hayward until 8-9 p.m. and from there, I had to spend the night at a hotel, perform my site visit the following morning, and then come back down to Madison. So, what that would look like here is that initial trip up to Hayward that night was 300 miles, we'll just say, at 51 cents per mile, so 103 or $153. And then I just mentioned that this is for one site visit from my location here in Madison all the way up to that location here in Hayward. And I just wrote one way, and that just, again, there's no specific way of saying like it needs to say one way or round trip, but the more detail you provide in the description section creates a stronger justification for reimbursing your entity for those expenses that you incurred. So we'll also say that the following day, return from site visit, so 334 Freedom Lane to 211 Egg Drive, that was also 300 miles, and multiplied, it's 153, and that was the following day. So pretty easy, pretty straightforward here. And again, you'll be only really inputting in these 3 sections here. So just a random travel or 25. We'll say that I had to perform a site visit down in Janesville again. That's 35 miles there, 35 miles back, and it was all under the same day. So 70, one site visit, 211 Egg Drive. Madison to 456 Blue Street, Janesville. And that's how you'd fill it out. These 2 pieces here you can just leave as is. And that would be enough information here. Actually, I'll just put round trip here and back. So it's a round trip. So sorry, I forgot to add that at the end there. But again, more detail helps clarify where your entity went, and if it was a round trip, so that we can justify this total cost here at $469.30. And looking at everything here, it looks good. And what you would do after filling out all the expenses that your entity has incurred for travel, mileage, and you want to incorporate that into a reimbursement, you would just use the total cost here if you agree with it and go, yep, nope, 51 cents per mile times the total mileage here does equal this amount. So I would incorporate that into the cover sheet for your reimbursement request. And then, you go into the detail sheet, you would click down on the first column to the left there, which would what category you would write travel, and then you would just say for your description of that expense, you would just say see the RFSI travel reimbursement sheet. Provided it as supplementary material for my reimbursement. So what it says basically in that reimbursement guide that was sent along with your other documentation, what we really need to see is just this information here. But also you would be able to parcel out where you would want this to go. Like for example, if you use travel as match, you would just put all of this in match. You split 50-50, then you can do 50% of this into the award side, or 50% of this onto the match side, or if this was all award amount, put it as all award. And then they'll calculate obviously with on the first tab, the cover sheet section there in your reimbursement cover sheet, and you'd be able to claim it. Following that is this bottom section here. So this is supervisor sign off. So for example, we'll say that I'm just an employee underneath that is contributing to the RFSI, my RFSI project, and that I actually do have a supervisor, and uh, say I'm the grant specialist and I have a director. We'll say the director is Grace, and we'll say director, and then we'll set the date submitted. So there we go. And then for supervisor sign off, they can double click this section here, and then that would allow them to sign or select an image of a previous PDF signature, and that would act as your signature for this document, where your supervisor is verifying that yes, this individual did go 220.2 miles to all these different locations, and we do have justification for this reimbursement. So you would just you have your supervisor agree and sign off in here on that one. And there would be a complete travel reimbursement sheet. So again, pretty straightforward, but if you have any more questions on these pieces here, or if there's something that you'd like me to go over again, please feel free to reach out at the DATCAP RFSI email. Grace and I would be more than happy to help out with providing guidance. So thank you.